and welcome to this special edition of Yavapai Speaks. This is a new show, and I'm really excited about it, and it's going to cover not only Yavapai County, but we are going to cover events throughout Arizona and even nationally. But I'm really focusing right now on Yavapai County. We have an election coming up. Ballots have just dropped yesterday. And for the next couple of weeks, people will already be going to the polls and turning in ballots. So this is really a hot time to be doing what we're about to do. I'm excited that I have two individuals running with us today, and you're going to get to meet them. And questions that I'm going to ask actually have come in from citizens. They don't know the questions. Neither candidate has seen the questions. And so I'm really excited myself to hear the answers. We'll see. My guests today are Mark Finchem, who is a member of the Arizona legislature for 8 years, and he's now running for the Senate in Yavapai County, LD1. And my other guest is Shawn Dell Wildman, who's running for the legislature, Yavapai County, in LD1. So Mark, if you'll just say hi for a second, and then Shawn Dell, follow him, and then we'll start in with the questions.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us.
Good afternoon. It's lovely to be here with you all.
Well, thank you for taking time out, both of you. Ladies and gentlemen, I just learned a couple of days ago that Yavapai Speaks is also appearing on YouTube and Rumble, and people in North Carolina and Georgia have accessed it. I'm not making this up. You all know me. I'm not technologically great at all. And I turned on YouTube at home to listen to music, and what came up was the interview I just finished with Congressman Eli Crane. And I turned to my wife, who is smart, and I said, "How is this on YouTube?" Well, what people are doing is they're going to Prescott E-News, and you can click on Prescott E-News and look for Yavapai Speaks. It's right there in the video cast, and you can see all the shows that we're starting to put out. Likewise, when we put them up, they're going out on YouTube, along with a couple of other, platforms. And people are accessing them. So that's how they got them. And I got a couple of emails from North Carolina and Georgia. So hello, North Carolina and Georgia. Thank you for joining us on Yavapai Speaks. Now, both of these candidates have agreed to join with me and let you, the Yavapai citizens, LD1, get to know them a little bit more. So I'm going to start in with some questions. There's no order to these questions. They've not seen or heard the questions, so they have no idea what I'm going to ask. And ladies and gentlemen, for those of you just brand new to Yavapai Speaks, my other show, Arizona Today, for 2.5 years, I don't do trick questions. I don't do gotchas. I don't believe in that. I believe in asking some really interesting, insightful questions, hopefully, to allow whoever my guest is to give interesting and insightful answers. I think what's important is that we, the people, learn what's really taking place, and from people who are either making the news or have a lot to do with it, versus gotchas. I think you can turn on many different shows and you can see gotchas. You can see media folks and hosts trying to capture whoever their guest is. I don't work that way. And so I just want to give you a heads up, ladies and gentlemen. So if you both are ready and are sitting down, here we go. Representative Finchem, let me start with you because the first couple of questions that came in were for you. One of the questions that came in just this morning is, did you pay to get President Trump's endorsement? Because on your signs, it shows endorsed by President Trump.
Yeah. So that's an allegation that was made by one of the candidates at a debate the other day. And quite frankly, it's a misrepresentation of a public filing, and that was for the 2022 Secretary of State race, where he held up a piece of paper and said, "I have proof, a Forbes magazine article that you paid Donald Trump for your endorsement." No, the sum that he was referring to was paid to the Mar-a-Lago Club as part of a fundraiser that was held in 2022. Now, there will be a similar filing because we also held a fundraiser for this race for 2024, although the fee, I think, is going to be significantly less because there was probably half the crowd that attended the most recent one. But that is a fee that is charged by the Mar-a-Lago Club, the organization, the property, for rental of the space, to pay wait staff, to cover the cost of food. Yes, there was booze and wine, and the guests who made contributions to the state Senate campaign made campaign contributions, and the fee was paid for out of those campaign contributions, and a good part of it was. And the delta, the difference between the fee that was charged by the Mar-a-Lago Club and what was in the clear went into the campaign coffers. I'm kind of surprised by the question because that intimates that folks might think that Donald Trump is for sale. Well, I hardly think that a billionaire needs to have a few shekels from me, especially when he has endorsed me because of my long track record of fighting for the people's interest, not fighting for the uniparty or special interests or individuals who somehow are in pursuit of stature or prestige or some level of power. So nothing could be further from the truth. President Trump's endorsements are not for sale. Quite frankly, I think that if he were to learn who made that accusation, I would not be surprised if he one day made a phone call and said, let me set the record straight for you.
Okay. Let me follow up with you, Mark. There's been a tremendous amount recently, in the last couple of weeks, there's been a tremendous amount of verbiage going out stating that you are a carpetbagger, that you've just moved into Yavapai County to run, that you had nothing else to do, and that you were missing, I'm reading from questions that came in, that you're missing a state paycheck. And likewise, you did not have a residence here. Your girlfriend had a trailer home here, and that's what you're using as your residence. Comment? I'm reading the question. I didn't make these up.
So first of all, I don't have a girlfriend.
I'm just reading the questions, ladies and gentlemen.
I am indeed a renter and have been for over a year now. The thing that I find very interesting, this is smash mouth politics at its worst. When Ken Bennett and Steve Zipperman can't compete with me on policy positions, they have to revert to misrepresentations. That's a legal term for lying. Ken Bennett made the accusation that I had pulled a campaign packet to run for Maricopa County supervisor. And then I quit that, and then I pulled a packet to run for the Maricopa County recorder. All right. First of all, no packet was ever pulled. I was asked to be a campaign manager for an individual who was investigating running for Maricopa County recorder. And ultimately, I talked that individual out of the race because Maricopa County is perhaps one of the most corrupt counties in the nation, let alone in the state. And when we have individuals who are willing to fabricate those kinds of accusations without any proof, that's very disturbing to me. Ken Bennett is doing that in an effort to veer away from the lackluster, in fact, very poor voting record that he has, and some of the misrepresentations that he's made in the public about being the leader of the 2020 audit. And it just goes on and on and on, his misrepresentation. So this is what I've come to expect from Ken Bennett. That guy would know the truth if it ran over him like a bus.
Okay. Now you can take a 1-minute break. I'm going to go to Shawn Dell. Miss Wildman, one of the questions that came in for you specifically is just wondering who Shawn Dell Wildman is and why she decided to run, and what's her claim to fame. That's the question.
I'm a native Texan, but I've been in Arizona since 1981 and Yavapai County since 1994. My husband and I purchased a small business. We were the fifth in line that's purchased this business. We've had it over 21 years. We've raised our children in the area, and they've all gone on to do the things they're enjoying and prepared to do. They're loving life now. We homeschool our children, and we continue to work our business. We're nearing retirement, and so that's a little bit about me. I was asked to run. There were some people that approached me to run, some people that have concerns about what they're seeing that I wasn't seeing, frankly, but it didn't take long to figure it out. So they've asked me to run and consider running. I wasn't interested because I said we were nearing retirement and we had retirement plans, but I could see that it was important to reconsider. And so I'm jumping in. Claim to fame. I actually don't claim fame. The only thing I can think of that people might know me as, I was an Awana leader in the area for 17 years. I picked up children and made sure they got to a good opportunity with Awana. And then my husband and I, as I said, we have a small business. It's a print publication, but people don't generally see my face unless they come into my office.
Great. Same question now for both of you. Shawn Dell, let me begin with you since I have you up. But it's the same question. What would you do with illegals entering Arizona and the drugs pouring in?
We definitely have a problem. I would like to see the border closed. I would like to have more security for our entire nation. As Mr. Finchem has mentioned many times, every county in our nation is a border county, and it's not secure. So I would like to see the people who are illegal go back home and try the front door. And I know that that's a formidable thing, but I actually know people who've done that. They're very proud of that. It was a great accomplishment in their lifetime, and they love to tell people their story about coming in, and they're contributing, and they're protected by our laws that way. So the drugs, that's definitely another problem. I think they're coming across in maybe more ways than we might understand. Capitalism lives the drug culture. If there is a client, there will be a supply. So, it works on both sides.
Representative Finchem.
Well, I think the real question is, do our sheriffs throughout the county or throughout the state have the funding and the manpower in order to enforce existing law? Now, one of the things that taxpayers are going to have an opportunity to vote on in the not too distant future is to establish a new law that deals with the difference between coming through a port of entry and coming through a point of entry. Port of entry means that you have come to our country to visit legally, that the federal government knows that you're here and expects you to return. When you come through a point of entry, that is off the books, and there, quite frankly, is no accountability. I believe that right now we have got a number of sheriffs, Mark Daniels, Mark Lamb, Leon Wilmot, who are working overtime. Their resources are stretched to the limit. They are pulling off everything from hard drugs, fentanyl, and some of the crystal methamphetamine, say that 3 times fast. And then marijuana no longer is the drug of choice coming across the border. Yeah, there's some of it coming across, but we have legalized dispensaries in Arizona. So to Mrs. Wildman's point, capitalism does win. And when there is a market for something that can be regulated, the government certainly has a place for it. But when it comes to fentanyl, that's a poison. Enough fentanyl if you were to take fentanyl in the size of a Splenda packet, that's enough fentanyl to kill hundreds of people. Just that small amount, if it's aerosolized. So, the biggest portion of the enforcement piece on illegals and the illegal drugs that are coming across. We need to do traffic stops, and lots of them. Out on Facebook, there are constant ads trying to get kids to go down to Mexico and pick up a load of people and bring them into the interior of the United States. We also have to have an educational piece in place so that they understand what they're doing is they're destroying their own country. When they participate in that, yeah, you might get a couple of $1,000s, but you also might get arrested by the Department of Public Safety. You might be arrested by the sheriff's office. You might have your vehicle taken away from you. It's not a good career path. Let's put it that way.
Do you see, both of you, same question? We know that there's a problem in the southern Arizona. It's very public. But do you see a problem in Yavapai County? And if not, how come?
Well, I'll take that first. I've spoken with Sheriff Rhodes, and he tells me in the meetings that I've had with him that, yes, we do have a problem. And one of our bigger problem is he's only got so much in the way of resources. He's only got so many vehicles that he can put on the road for road patrol. These are high intensity, high risk traffic stops. And he's got one-man cars. So to get backup, whether it's DPS or municipal policing or another sheriff's deputy, quite often that backup is more than just a few minutes away. In fact, in some places around Arizona, around Yavapai County, that could be as much as an hour away. So I-17 is the corridor to move all of that between human trafficking and the drugs. That is the corridor to move everything north. There is no other direct pathway to get it out of the southern part of the state and into the area of I-40 where it can be distributed all over the nation.
So you're seeing or saying that there's a problem in Yavapai County. It's beginning to show up.
Yes, there is.
Okay. Shawn Dell.
Yes, sir. I would agree. In fact, I have a very dear friend who's local, very local to me, that died tragically of a fentanyl overdose. And he had been trying to keep the habit, and he apparently got one that was particularly potent, and she found him dead in his room in the morning. So, yeah, we have a problem.
Since I have you up right now, let me ask this question of you. What is your stance on reaching across the aisle to the Democrats in the state legislature? And how will you work with the different factions of the Republican Party to further legislation?
I'm strong with the Constitution. So to me, that has to come first. If we can filter ideas through the Constitution and come to an agreement, I'm all for that. If something is contrary to the Constitution, I can't see budging off that.
Okay. Let me stick with you for just a second, and then I'll go. The same question goes to Representative Finchem. What methods would you use? Again, I'm reading off of questions that have come in. What methods would you use to communicate with your constituents if elected? How would you actively solicit input from your constituents?
Oh, I love that. So I've had quite the journey in being a candidate. This is my first time to be a candidate, and it's been an interesting journey. I've learned that we have a fabulous network of people that love our country in our area, and they have expressed great openness to me to host get-togethers. And so that would be one thing I would offer is an opportunity to get together and just have face-to-face time. There's also technology that we might be able to use. I would be open to exploring whatever options that I would very much like to hear what people are experiencing and what they're concerned about. Because if I don't hear it from people, then how do I know what I might need to do for them as a representative?
Okay. Mark Finchem, same question. What methods would you use to communicate with your constituents, and how would you actively solicit input from your constituents if you become a senator?
Well, I would keep doing the same thing that I've done for the last 10 years. And there are two formats that I just love. First is the in-person meet and greet. That's where we just put it out there. In fact, we've had several of them around the county at Colt Grill. at the Palace, a number of house parties where we've had folks that have asked me a question and they're like, my neighbors want to know something. It's like, I tell you what, so that I can help your neighbors understand where I stand, how about we have a house party and you invite them? I'm happy to come to your home. The other one, which has a far greater reach, is a teletown hall, holding Zoom meetings that are aimed at collecting feedback. Some political figures will go online and espouse what their position is and then say, thank you very much for showing up and leave. That's not my style. My style is to ask of the audience, what are the top 3 things that you can agree on that we can do something about? And from that discussion, we usually get 20, 30 things that are on the taxpayers' minds, on the constituents' minds, everything from infrastructure to the degradation of education to whatever that might be. And, one of the first things that I want to remind those folks that do participate in a teletown hall, very much like what we're doing right now, is the purpose of government. The purpose of government is to protect the civil rights of the people. Hard stop. That's the first test of what elected officials are doing, should be doing. And if they're not listening to the feedback, particularly at the representative level, state representative, state senator, these positions are the closest positions to the people because they represent the fewest number of people in the state government. So it's essential that you collect feedback in real time. It's not a one and done kind of meeting. These are the kinds of things that you should be doing monthly, because when the legislature's in session, it's usually in session for 3 to 4 months, unless, of course, we have a Democrat governor, and then it could be an entire year. But during the off season, that's when you're checking in with folks, particularly and specifically, how are the roads in your area? What is your opinion of how the school is operating? Do you think that you need to have more money in law enforcement? What are you seeing in your neighborhood? What are you hearing? And what are the things that keep you up at night? Those are the questions that an active listener who is representing the interests of the people, those are the questions that you should be asking. And then you make a statement, one statement for every 5 questions that you're taking in. That's a really good formula for success.
I noticed neither one of you said that you would use Yavapai Speaks. I just want to say that for the record. Neither one of you supported the program here.
Well, I beg to differ. I did say, just like this medium.
Miss Wildman, do you want to make a comment about this?
It's a fabulous outlet. I appreciate the opportunity.
There you go.
May we have a confirmation to use it in the future.
See, I'm not bashful. I'll plug Yavapai Speaks all I can. All right, both of you, I want a short answer. So let me give you a second or two. I want a short answer to this, a real answer, sincere, but you can shorten this one down if you would, please. Public schools are hemorrhaging students to private, charter, and home schools. Do you believe that we should reverse this trend, or should it be encouraged? And how would you accomplish your position legislatively?
The schools are failing our students. There are wonderful teachers and wonderful people that are doing their very best, but they are hemorrhaging students. And I completely support parents' authority to make decisions for their children, to do the best that they understand their children need. But they support that, and the funds. I also support the funds following the student. So if they pull out of one school, the funds for that student could go to the next thing that their parents think they might need to get, enrichment or tutoring or whatever they need to do to oversee the success of their students' education.
Do you see your position as a legislator, if you're successful? Do you see your position, or do you believe as a legislator you have a certain level of responsibility to enhance the students' progress in learning how to read, write, and spell?
Well, anytime we have accountability, generally there's a better performance. So accountability is a good thing for schools. I know schools get grades. That's helpful for parents, right, to recognize the grade that the schools get. So that's a layer of accountability. The parents also have influence with school boards, maybe being on them, showing up to them, making their wishes known. Uh, I don't believe more government is more better. I don't. I believe people are wise and are concerned about their children. And of course, there's going to be gaps in that. There is no perfect system, but I think we can do better by students by giving them more opportunities, more options.
Okay, Mr. Finchem.
I think this is one of the reasons why President Trump has endorsed me. I support his move to end the Department of Education, because all the Department of Education has done is establish the woke culture in school systems all across the United States. I find it interesting that the school districts hide from their constituents. When there's too many parents that are too raucous, they go to Zoom meetings as opposed to having real meetings, because they can't handle the truth. They can't handle the fact that their constituents, the people they were elected to represent on the school boards, are voicing their opinion and their angst, if you will, at the condition of the public school education. Now, I am a staunch supporter. In fact, I was one of the people who helped build and reinforce the homeschooling paradigm for ESAs, the education scholarship accounts. And I firmly believe that backpack funding, 100% of the funding for every student in the state of Arizona, should follow that student wherever they may go. I disagree with the position that only 90% of that money follows the child, because there's 10% sunken costs with the public schools. Too bad. My position is very clear on this. That money belongs to the parents. In fact, the court has already said on multiple occasions that money belongs to the parents to educate their children until such time as the parents make a decision and enter into a contract with the school of their choice. That may be a religious school. It may be a secular school. It could be a public school in a different district. Does not matter. That money should follow the child. And if the parent does not believe that child is receiving the kind of education that the child deserves, they should have every right to vote with their feet and their wallet.
So a follow-up question, I just want a yes and no from both of you on this. Do you, Mark, do you agree with school choice and protecting ESA so parents have a choice where to send their children?
Yes.
Ms. Wildman.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
That was 2 words.
I'll take one back.
Yeah, but she supported Yavapai Speaks, so I'll let her have that. All right. Now, Mark, this is, but Shawn Dell, since I have you up on the screen, let me ask you this, but this is in Mark's wheelhouse. What do you believe are Arizona's biggest election integrity challenges right now? And what do you believe can be done to ensure safe and fair elections in 2024?
Well, I'm just going to say it out plain and simple. The voting machines are connected to the internet. That prevents a secure election. Just that one thing. So my favorite way to do it would be what we did, our forefathers did back in the day, paper ballots. People show up on one day of election, fill out a paper ballot, and then people count them by hand. And there's a small group of people that it's a nice checks and balance, 2 or 3, I think it's 3 people. You check them, 2 people from one party, 1 from the other. So it's fair that way. And we can get through it quickly. We have historically done that. I'd like to see it happening.
Mr. Finchem.
I'll give you the short answer and try to be short. Paper ballots counted by hand, collected in clear ballot boxes, counted on the day of the election. And to add to that, in fact, this is perhaps it's the one common sense thing that nobody wants to talk about, that you must show positive photo ID when you walk into the polls, whether it's to turn in your ballot or to cast a ballot at the polls. Now, quite frankly, I have no problem with mailing ballots out to constituents. What I have a problem with is the indiscriminate return and the failure to have a chain of custody between the voter and the county recorder, the county elections office. The architecture where someone will receive a ballot in the mail, they fill it out at home with all of the various periodicals that they receive that tell the story so that they can be fully informed. It's not a difficult drive to go to a government collection center, show your photo ID so that at the collection center, they know that you are the voter who's entitled to cast that ballot. Now, of course, the left will say, "Oh, that's racist." Well, that's an interesting accusation because we have state and federal identification that's issued to people. Even the tribes issue tribal IDs. So I'm struggling with how that ends up being racist. If an individual who doesn't have a photo ID but is receiving government benefits, they have to show a photo ID in order to be on the public dole. So I think that the time has come for us to get serious about positive identification when one is present to vote or one brings their ballot in. And that is a piece of legislation that if I can't get through with my colleagues in the legislature in the next session, that is certainly something that I believe we will refer to the ballot. And the polling tells me that 70+% of Arizona voters are in favor of such a thing. It would be a slam dunk to put into the Arizona Constitution.
Let me stick with you for a minute, Mark. And your initial answer to this one is like a softball question thrown up and hit out of the ballpark. But the same question goes to both of you. Who's your favorite Republican and why?
Dead or alive?
I'm sorry?
Dead or alive?
The question, who's your favorite Republican and why? So that's present tense. So I would.
Okay. Dead, Barry Goldwater. Alive, Donald Trump.
It's a pretty simple question. Miss Wildman, who's your favorite Republican and why?
Wow, it would be hard to top that list. Barry Goldwater is pretty amazing in Arizona. He's got a great history and did some good things for us. I would agree with Barry Goldwater, and of course, President Trump is he's epic, absolutely epic.
It's a pretty easy question, but I'm here asking questions.
Oh, and by the way, that endorsement is not an exchange. It's not a quid pro quo for his endorsement of me.
Just for the record, yeah, let's make sure.
Just in case one of the two candidates wants to take.
But I was going to come back to you, Mark, because the question is, who is your favorite Republican and why?
Oh, why?
Yeah, why? Yeah.
I'll focus on President Trump. I have met President Trump a number of times, and we've had the opportunity, a grand opportunity, to have some pretty decent conversations, albeit short, 2 to 5 minutes. He is perhaps one of the most genuine men I've ever met in my life. He's not afraid to let an F-bomb fly. He's not afraid to speak right from the center of his heart. He is an honorable man and loves this country perhaps more than anybody I know. And I know a lot of people who are willing to give and that's not hyperbole, willing to lay down their lives for this country. Well, that's Donald John Trump. And as I said, I have never met a more genuine, involved, honorable man that has in public office or not. He has just been, I think, an example and will go down as the greatest president next to George Washington in the history of this country.
The next question is specifically for Shawn Dell. What is your leadership style?
Well, I'm going to lean into the 17 years that I served as an Awana leader. I was one person in the group of people that I served with that championed the children who didn't have parents that put as much time into them as the people who served with me. In other words, they were They were a crowd of people that made sure their kids had all their needs met, and they made whatever sacrifices. I championed children that came from, we might say, the other side of the tracks, and they weren't really being looked at or looked after, which meant they could be unruly, not interested in keeping rules. They were challenging authority on a regular basis, but they kept coming back because they loved that there was a firmness. We had a system for discipline, which was a positive. And if there was a public offense that they committed, we required a public apology. If it was a private offense, we took care of it privately. Now, with that said, there were some children who were just particularly challenging. They didn't learn at home to follow rules and the benefit of being a benefit to a group. Right? They took way more time to work with in a group setting than we would like to be. So I began to experiment and found this wonderful fun thing. I learned to put them on my team. I gave them responsibilities. And I can tell you, every single one of those children rose to the occasion. And several of them still look me up all these years later and thank me for that investment in them. I expected great things of them. I could see their potential, where they were going in the future if they didn't make a turn, and I invested in them in making a turn. And many of them did and chose good paths. Not that it was all me, but we just could show them the benefit of submitting to discipline. So that has been my leadership style, to find them, find their need, and do what I could to meet their need and put them on my team and help them to become their best.
Let me do a follow-up question. I'll start with you, Shawn Dell. Same question to Mark Finchem. Given that the state of Arizona's leadership has remarkably changed in the last 2 years with liberals in the governor's office, Secretary of State's office, the Attorney General's office, and given the extremely thin margin in both houses of the legislature, the Senate and House of Representatives, how would you meet the objectives you hope to accomplish if you're successful becoming a legislator?
So again, with the Constitution, right, I would hope that we could agree a baseline that the Constitution stands, that it and rule of law stands. And then from there, I would like to see that we could agree on some basic things like children and family and improving our way of life here back closer to what it used to be, and then go beyond that.
And Mark?
Politics is a team sport. And quite often you will need to, excuse me, pull in the opposition and find out what exactly do they need to have for their constituencies. Now, Katie Hobbs was quite gleeful about the number of bills that she had vetoed. Well, that's a disservice to the people of the state of Arizona. But then again, you've got individuals like Ken Bennett, for example, represented that we passed a budget when he actually voted against the budget. And after he got caught, suddenly he has now changed his narrative a little bit. Well, I voted against the budget because I didn't get in it what I wanted. Well, quite frankly, the people of Arizona have told me very clearly that they believe the government is already too big, that they believe that there is too much money that's going out the door to special interests. So with all due respect to Mr. Bennett, when you say we passed a budget, I'm glad you corrected yourself, but you still got caught in a misrepresentation. And it was only after that was called out that you responded to it. Quite frankly, to build teams, I've had Democrats come to me in multiple sessions saying, hey, I've got this idea. I know you're one of the conservative leaders of the House, and people are going to probably laugh when you bring my bill forward, but how do we make this thing happen? Whatever it might be. And I'm happy to work with my Democrat colleagues because, by the way, Republicans use this term rhino, Republican in name only. Well, there's also Dinos, Democrats in name only. And a lot of that arises out of an individual who is a conservative, but running in a predominantly Democrat district. They have good ideas too. And I think that when we have pragmatic leadership, and these are ideas that just because it has a D stamp on it doesn't mean it's a bad idea. Now, I'll walk that back a little bit. 99% of them are bad ideas, but every once in a while there's a pearl. And I think working with building teams to get the objective done as opposed to focusing on party, quite often we get a better result.
Well, Mark, let me stay with you for a second here longer. Do you see an inconsistency in Ken Bennett's voting record?
To say the least.
And is that inconsistency sufficiently remarkable that it has created more of a hardship for the state of Arizona than somebody who votes, as your voting record suggests, a very conservative, consistent record?
I think it has. And quite frankly, that is why after I moved here, I was recruited to run against Ken Bennett by members of the Senate, by members of the House, because Ken Bennett, instead of hearing bills and letting them fail on their own merits, sat on them. Instead of calling out to the caucus and saying, hey, I have an issue with this particular bill, whatever it might be, just killed the bill in his vote on the floor. Ken has also tried to shade the truth a little bit. I'm not going to vote for something unless these changes are put into it, particularly one of the border bills that I believe the governor, I believe it's the one the governor vetoed. Could have been the one that was referred, but I'm getting this secondhand from members of the Senate. Many of the amendments were already on their way to being passed. When Ken Bennett ran out and got in front of the TV cameras and said, I'm going to stand firm on these until they're changed. Well, okay, I later learned that those changes were already in the works. So it was a little bit of political theater. I am averse to political theater. I think that it is a disservice to the taxpayers because it basically confuses the issue and causes unnecessary hardship on the state.
Okay. Shawn Dell, a similar question, with the understanding that you haven't been in the legislature, but what do you see as one of your main opponents' irregular voting record? I believe you're running against two incumbents, and what do you see as their irregular voting record?
So I would like to speak intelligently to that, but I will be honest and tell you I've had a very difficult time and not just recently, but the whole time that I've been a voter in Arizona, I've had a difficult time finding a place where we can see, as the public, see the record. And I find that very frustrating. So I can't speak to what either one of them has done or not done, and it's not for lack of trying. I've not found I would like to see, should I get an opportunity to straighten that out, make it something that the public can easily access the voting record of anybody who's there voting on their behalf.
Now, sticking with you for just a moment, I understand, I may have this wrong, so you'll have to correct me. I think the last 3 public events you went to, your opponents did not show up. Is that part correct?
Oh, that is correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. So what I'm wondering is they have not shown up, at least for the last 3 events. They have not stood to explain, share, not defend, but share their voting records. So you really don't have an idea of their irregularity or consistency, one way or the other. Are you able to find out through their websites or through the legislative websites?
I have not, and I even have some friends looking what we can find or bits and pieces of this and that, but not a complete picture. So I find it very frustrating, actually. And it's not just the people that are running the same race as I, but it's it's a difficult thing. I have people coming to me to ask all the time, where do I get this information? And I'm coming up short. So are people that I know who are very good at digging things up. Frustrating for sure.
Okay. Well, let me give you both a moment. Let me share something with our audience, and then I'll come back and ask you for closing comments. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've learned something here with both of these candidates. I thank you for the questions that have come in. They did not know the questions. They did not see the questions unless somebody who wrote to me released it to them. I'm fully aware that nobody has seen them except me today. So thank you for that. I hope this show was informative as well as a little entertaining. So Shawn Dell, since I have you up right now, I'm giving you 60 seconds and I'm looking at a clock down here. Any closing thoughts and comments you'd like to share?
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. Like President Trump, he came in as an outsider. There were people that approached him to run for office. I understand he had to think about it a little bit, but he went forward and made steps forward. That's exactly what happened to me. I'm an outsider. I've not run in any kind of an elected position or anything. But like President Trump, I'm a business owner and done whatever it takes to keep the business running and going for 21 plus years. I've lived in this county a long time. The last thing I'd like to leave with folks is that Ms. Judy Burgess endorses me, has made herself available to me because I'm new, but she is very experienced and loves this community, and she's made herself available to me to tap into her wisdom, and I fully intend to do that.
Thank you. Mark Finchem.
Thank you, Lyle. Ladies and gentlemen, one of my favorite quotes comes from Mark Twain. Politicians are like diapers. They need to be changed often and for usually the same reason. Ken Bennett has been in office, public office, since he was 19 years old, in one office or another. It's time to retire, Ken Bennett. Donald Trump has endorsed me for that very reason. Mike Flynn, General Mike Flynn, has endorsed me. Director Tom Homan, former director of ICE, has endorsed me. That is the trifecta of three of the most honorable men in American politics today. There's a reason for that, because they know that I will show fidelity not just to the Constitution, but also to the America First agenda that President Trump has laid out. He's strategic about his endorsements and the picks that he makes to make certain that when it comes to implementing America First policies at the state level, the right people are in office to help get the job done. You know, it's said that politics brings out the best and the worst of people. I certainly hope that it's brought out the best in me, and I have observed that it's brought out the worst in the other two candidates, which I am terribly sad about. Their failure to make this about policy and avoid personality is an abject failure. I hope that they will rethink the closing days of this, but you can now vote right now. Well, not over the weekend, but come Monday, you'll have the opportunity to vote this coming week. And I recommend go to the polls and vote. We have early voting in Yavapai County so that you don't have to wait in line. God bless you, and thank you very much for considering me. Visit votefinchem.com if you want to know more about me.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today on Yavapai Speaks. My guests have been Shawn Dell Wildman, running for the state House of Representatives in Yavapai County, LD1, and Mark Finchem, running for the Senate in Yavapai County, LD1. I hope you've enjoyed this, and thank you for your questions. And I look forward to being with you on Yavapai Speaks next time. I'm Lyle Rapacki. Have a great day.